Om Asatoma Sadgamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om, from ignorance lead me to the truth, from darkness lead me to light, from death lead me to immortality. Om, peace, peace, peace. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Does anybody have any thoughts or questions? Yes, Abhisha.
Means how to do any activity with a constant remembrance of the self, and activity such that it consumes all the attention, so no bandwidth left for the self. As in, because I don't have the intuitive understanding of the self, so.
Yeah. Abhisha's question is that how do we do all activities with a constant remembrance of the self? Because we don't have bandwidth to remember when we are doing something so busy. How can you also remember you're the self and do the activity? Isn't it more distracting than just doing the activity? Is that your question, Abhisha?
Yes, Aditya, yes.
Okay. So Abhisha, whenever you do any activity, like you're bathing or singing or eating, do you forget that you're Abhisha?
No, because that's intuitive understanding, because that I know.
Exactly.
That's second nature to me. So
Exactly. So that's your answer. So the knowledge of the self, when it's theoretical, it's like a knowledge of physics or knowledge of chemistry. You can't remember organic chemistry and do something else at the same time. These are because it's stored in memory. Anything that's stored in memory needs to be recalled to remember, right? So whenever we learn any spiritual study, we may think we've understood it, but actually it's just stored in memory as a byte, as a 5 MB of information. And therefore it cannot be constant, because if it's in memory, you have to recollect it. And it's a lot of mental bandwidth to recollect something while doing something else. So when we say constantly dwell in the self, if it's a knowledge from memory that you have to invoke, it's an activity, it's a pressure to do that. So but why don't you're not recollecting from memory that you're Abhisha when you are singing, when you're bathing, when you're cooking, when you're eating, when you're walking, because it's self-evident, a priori, aparoksha understanding that you're Abhisha. You're not pulling it out of memory each time. Imagine how tough that would be. So the highest wisdom in understanding the self is not a memory byte of intellectual knowledge. It is knowing you are that with such self-evidence that you don't need to recollect it. So knowing you are that, making it self-evident and obvious, there is no exertion required at any point in time to hold that belief and do an activity at the same time. You're only doing the activity with the self-evident knowledge that you are that sakshi, the witness. That is why there are so many paths and everything to make it self-evident, make it easy, Once you make it easy and self-evident, you've dissolved all this knowledge, business, rituals, knowledge, karma, bhakti, jnana. It's self-evident for you. So you don't need karma, bhakti, jnana to know your Abhisha, right? It's you don't need reinforcement. You don't need some bhakti. You don't need some yoga to prove to yourself your Abhisha. So you wake up in the morning, along with that springs forth your self-evident knowledge that I'm Abhisha, this is where I live, this is what I do, I'm a woman, I'm this age, everything kind of becomes self-evident for you. Reinforcing something can also make things self-evident. So one of the ways to make the fact that you are that sakshi, the self-evident is constantly reinforcing it with knowledge, not reinforcing it like a dogma or a belief. I have no idea what that means, but let me just keep telling that to myself. That's not reinforcement. That is reinforcing the memory. If you're reinforcing something without understanding it, you're reinforcing the memory of it. That's useful. But reinforcing, trying to understand the first principle of it. What does that mean, that I am the self? What does it mean that I am Abhisha? That itself is a very vague thing. For you, it's obvious. But why is it obvious? But for you, it's obvious because it's reinforced 1,000 times. Similarly, that's what we mean by being the self. Is just a matter of knowing you're the self, not even trying to experience it. Or that's all very stupid things to say. How can you experience the self? How can the snake experience the rope? It doesn't make any sense. The snake should know, in this bad example, the snake should know I am the rope. It's a matter of knowledge alone there, not a matter of experience. When that knowledge becomes self-evident, the snake disappears, because that had no pith and substance anyway, right? That was just a figment of ignorance. Therefore, what alone remains is the rope. So know, like the 10th person, like Dashamattvamasi. That only 9 people exit. Where's the 10th person? Where's the 10th person? What does the wise sage say? First, know the 10th exists. That itself is a matter of relief. The pressure settles down. The fear goes away. Then, but where is the 10th? Then the person says, turn the finger. You didn't count yourself. You are the 10th. So to bring that fear down, to bring the clouds of the mind and emotions and memories, offsetting that, is first knowing that I am some eternal, unchanging akshara, like we saw last time, imperishable self, in which all of these mutating identities of mine, my own minds and memories and emotions, my own body and physical nature, the world and all its physical nature, are all appearing and getting revealed. In what backdrop? The eternal, unchanging, imperishable, akshara, nityam, anantam, satyam. That eternal backdrop is me. Now that itself, like the 10th man example, reinforcing that should give calm and peace. Then you meditate on that, as we saw in chapter 6, chapter 5, chapter 6. And then you realize that, that which I have used all this while to bring calmness in my mind, that eternal universal God, or me, the eternal Sakshi, is one and the same. And then it becomes a solidified piece of knowledge. So as you do everyday work, Abhisha, focus on everyday work. In the beginning, when this knowledge is not intuitive, don't try to become ineffective in everyday work by distracting yourself also with I'm the self, I'm the self. Take some time off to do that separately, so it doesn't make you ineffective in other work. Take 1 or 2 hours a day. That's why to meditate, close-eyed meditation. At that time, just focus on this, marinate, simmer this knowledge. After a point, it becomes self-evident. Then it becomes a self-evident knowledge that you're not consciously thinking of every moment, but yet that is the backdrop in which you're doing all activities with that supreme knowledge of the self. Any other thoughts and questions? Okay, good. Last week, we saw Akshara Brahma Yoga, the yoga of the imperishable Brahman. The chapter 9 that we're going to see today is called Raja Vidya Raja Guhya Yoga. Raja means the royal, the sovereign, the ultimate. Vidya Guhya means the ultimate science or knowledge and the ultimate secret. We ended last week, if we remember, chapter 8. And I also assume that some of you will add on to this class by some personal reading. It's difficult to understand complex topics and outsource it to another human being, to their lack of or present communication and knowledge. So you might have, some of you, read through some of the verses, chapters, and one of the things that Krishna says, ends chapter 8, Akshara Brahma Yoga, is that there are two journeys that we all can travel. And both these journeys, in a way, are eternal. One journey, he calls a journey of the light and journey of the dark, loosely translated into English. Dark and light only means, like we saw, Asatoma Sadkame, Tamasoma Jyotirkame. Jyotir means light. So journey of the light means journey towards real, journey towards the truth. Journey of the dark means journey that's veiled by dark. Dark is a symbolism for ignorance, isn't it? When something is hiding something, it's dark, it's ignorance. But he says both can be eternal. It's a very interesting observation. The journey of the dark means that life continues to be a constant process of credit and debit system. And you are eternally journeying through demand and supply basis your credit and debits. Forget afterlife and stuff. In our own life so far, how many ever years you've lived, you find that your life is just a series of debits and credits, isn't it? Of course, you probably came in with a higher credit or came in with a higher debit. Some people are lucky to be born with a credit card per se, punya. Why is my life pretty good? My body is pretty healthy. I mean, what did I do so differently than that disabled person who was born without a limb? We don't know all that, so let's not get into that now. But even within the space called life, we see that our own actions and intentions lead to certain positive debits and credits or negative debits in our life. So our bank balance keeps changing, and whatever the bank balances are, it is creating a effect on the future experience of life. So at some point in life, if you find yourself unhealthy, it's probably you having debited too much of good health at some point in time. So now you're at a deficit and you got to pay your dues, right? And then you take effort, uddhared atmanatma, you raise yourself by yourself, you add nice credits to your account. And then you find that life's kinder to you, people are kinder to you, the world is more generous to you, you're becoming a leader in this world. And then it's a debit and credit and debit and credit. So this is the journey Krishna talks about, not just within our window of observation within a lifetime, but it's useful to understand by seeing a 10-year space, 20-year space, to understand cause and effect. But then Krishna says it's a little more complex than that. The journey of the dark means that even after you shed your physical body, the gunas, the debits and credits, it's just watertight. I mean, it can't go unanswered, because the gross body dies, the subtle body lives on. So he says that wherever you are as you leave this world physically, that is the demand for which the next supply will be drawn towards you. So this journey will continue, Arjuna, he says. None can escape the journey, the vicious cycle of birth and death and birth and death and birth and death. Remember, from a highest Advaitic point of view, it is not birth and death into this world again. Meaning, it's not like some stationary earth or universe that exists, from which you die and then you're born in some other part of the world, from which you die, then you're born. No. These are births and deaths as in your own projections. As you die, the supply falls back. And then per the demand, the next supply folds forth. But we don't need to go to that level now. But that's one journey that Krishna talks about. It's also eternal. In ignorance, We are in eternal bondage, is what Krishna says. Because debits and credits. So this is the interesting piece here, if you find these things interesting, which is how much ever you try in this journey of the dark, which is a demand supply debit credit system, you cannot escape it. Why? Because you give the best shot to life. You only want to accumulate credit. You're like the Hermione, Harry Potter Hermione of this life, which is studious student who want to accumulate credit. So you experience a better life. But you're still in this chakkar of better and better is also birth and death, isn't it? There is no escape. Therefore, it's eternal. There is no escape. Ignorance is eternal. So the only escape from this is the drop of knowledge, which shakes the foundation of this punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam, which is what? How do you get out from the cycle of birth and death itself? Moksha, nirvana, liberation, self-realization. It's all that. How do you get out from the cycle? Understanding that you cannot get out of the cycle. like people talk about governments. You cannot get out of the system by trusting the system itself. The system is corrupt, people say. Similarly, you cannot get out from the cycle of birth and death by doing more good or more bad in the cycle itself. You need to take a step back and audit the cycle itself. What is this? Is there any pith and substance to this? I'm being swayed by the goods of life and bads of life. I'm crying for certain things, laughing for certain things. I'm elated for certain things, depressed for certain things. This keeps continuing and continuing and continuing. In the good times, I think I want this to be forever. In the bad times, I think I want to suicide and die. So this entire good and bad seem to be just a continual motion that's eternal. What can the best life be, sir? Okay, you accumulated enough credit, the karmic credit, I mean. What can be the best life? You feel happy for a long time. You feel satisfied. You buy what you want. You have a decent environment. Yeah, but that's also not fixed in stone forever, isn't it? There will be debit there, credit there. So this is eternal. The Krishna says. The other journey of light, is not trying to be a good citizen in the system. It is trying to audit and question the system itself. Is there any pith and substance behind the cyclical nature of birth and death? Am I the person who's caught in the winds of this cycle of birth and death? Or am I that part in me, that part of the universe, which is actually free from the cycle of birth and death? Just by a lower identification of myself, I am seemingly caught in the cycle of birth and death, but there is something in me that is ever present, ever free, constant, eternal, that has got nothing to do with the samsaric cycle of birth and death. In what backdrop is this entire cycle happening? In what stillness is this motion of constant birth and death happening? What is the prerequisite pure consciousness upon which these conditionalities are taking place again and again and again? What is that screen upon which movies are coming and going, movies and coming and going? What is that source material upon which the bracelets and the golds and bracelet and the rings and the necklaces are taking one shape? Today it's a bracelet, tomorrow it's a necklace, day after it's a ring, the day after that it's a plate. But what is the source which itself is unaffected by whether it's a bracelet or ring or necklace, but without which there is no bracelet or ring or necklace? Is that source gold in this case? Is that within the samsaric cycle of bracelet becoming necklace, becoming ring, becoming necklace? Or is it outside this karmic cycle of bracelet becoming a ring, becoming a necklace? It is both. Because without the gold becoming associated with this nama rupa, there is no gold or bracelet. So which means bracelet and ring and necklace, they're all appearing and disappearing because of gold. Without gold, there is none. But at the same time, gold itself remains unaffected through the cycle of bracelet becoming melting down and becoming ring that melts down and becoming a plate that melts down and becoming something else. That's like the saguna, nirguna nature of Brahman itself, Krishna says. Is the gold what is responsible for bracelets and necklace and rings appearing and disappearing in its own shelf life? It is gold that's responsible for that. So that is the saguna nature of gold. That nature of gold, which is what has combined with, so to speak, Maya, and therefore the bracelet thinks, I am the bracelet, necklace thinks, I am the necklace, ring thinks, I am the ring. All that's not possible without gold being there, isn't it? So in that sense, where do all these come from? The gold bracelet, they all come from that gold. Where do they all dissolve back into? They all melt back into the gold. So that's like the universal God, the saguna nature of Brahman. But at the same time, gold by itself, from its point of view, nothing is happening. It's a very subtle point. What's happening from the point of view of gold, sir? Nothing's happening. Because whether it be a bracelet or ring, gold is still gold. So if you've identified purely with gold, whatever be the mutations of that, you don't know. You continue to be gold, isn't it? Without nama rupa, gold was always gold. Whether it be bracelet, all that's at the level of nama rupa, it's all changing. From the nirguna perspective, nirguna is gold. There is formless to bracelet, formless, the formless nature, so to speak, which is without the necklace form, without the ring form, without the bracelet form. Was is and always is gold. From that point of view, there is no change happening. There is no birth happening. There's no death happening. You understand? That is the nirguna nature of Brahman. So in the journey of light that Krishna says, it is about getting in contact beyond the names and forms and birth and death and credits and debits and universes, heaven and hell and all that's fine. What is the essential cause of all of this? Without which the samsara will not happen. But that itself is unaffected, untainted by samsara. It's a tough question to ask. That's why it is the Raja Vidya and Raja Guhya, the royal knowledge and royal secret. What's the benefit of this? Understanding this? The benefit of this is that you become mentally free of the cyclical nature, the eternal trap of just worldly permutations and combinations. You are in the world still, but you've identified, self-evidently identified. With that does not change. So you become free this moment. You become free this moment. So that's the prelude to chapter 9. Must be lucky to have a chapter like the royal secret, the sovereign guarantee. The royal secret, you're going to see, as we've seen, one of our favorites, Yogakshemam Bahamyaham, is part of this chapter, where Krishna gives a sovereign assurance, sovereign guarantee. We say that even in today's RBI gives a guarantee. It's called a sovereign guarantee, because it's the ultimate form of trust that you're supposedly to have on the federal bank or the king's coffers. Yogakshemam Bahamya, Krishna says, if you are able to drop your current attachments from which you're so afraid to get out of, because you don't know what's on the other side of what I'm calling you to, Arjuna. If you're able to place your trust in me, worship me, delight in me, think of me, then Yogakshemam Vahamya. I guarantee, you've guaranteed that, I will now guarantee to you that I will take care of your needs. We'll see that later. But you observe in life, isn't it? Whenever you step up to a higher form of joy, to the person who has not stepped up, there's a lot of fear because they have to let go of the something current that they're holding on to for joy. But nobody who has stepped up their quality of desire, once they get there, complain about the lack of the lower quality of happiness that they received. That's Yogakshemam Vahamyam, even in our lives. When you are in service of others, there is a sovereign guarantee in that service that you won't feel a lack of that selfish desires that you were holding on to in the past. That also is given unto you. And this elevated joy is given unto you. For people who are lost in worship of the Lord, the sovereign guarantee, you may say, oh, but they're not working so hard to become more and more rich. The sovereign guarantee to them, if that worship is indeed true, is that the lack which would have previously led them to chase something like a dog, that lack itself has disappeared. Yogakshemam Vahamya. I will take care of your needs. Doesn't mean that God would say, since you're worshipping me, there is an opportunity cost that you're not becoming the richest man in the world. So if you worship me, I will give you $10,000 every day, because that's what you're losing out on in the time that you worship. I'm just making it up. Not that, yogi, not like God is going to give you everything that you've lost opportunity to. But the lack which would have demanded that itself is taken away from you. And you're elevating in the process. So that's one beautiful sloka. Another beautiful sloka is Patram Pushpam Phalam Thoyam. We'll see that. God says, with love, even the smallest offering brings you closer to me. So it's a very auspicious chapter with many gems. So as we start, let me invite my mother to sing some of these beautiful 4 or 5 slokas from this chapter. Mom, are you there?
Yes, I'm there.
Yeah. Just give me a minute before you start. I'll open the PDF.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
You can start.
Okay. So hello, friends. Nice to be back. So like I'm starting from the shloka after the 20th. Typically I'm starting with the 22nd, because the initial 20 shlokas talk more about the creator, origin of the world, the Atman and the demonic and the divine nature, etc. So I'm straight diving into the shloka 22nd and about the 5 shlokas I've selected. And these are about the glory of devotion and complete surrender to liberate from bondage. And I found them all very, very touching. So the very first shloka I'm starting with is, as it was very beautifully said by Aditya, Lord here is almost guaranteeing that you're going to be liberated if you follow all of this. The very first shloka is shloka number 22, where God is saying, surrender to me and I will give you what you lack and I'll preserve what you have. Ananyas chintayanto mam ye jana paryupasate tesham nityabhiyuktanam yogakshemam vahamyaham. Krishna continues in shloka 26, where he says, I accept any offering that comes with pure heart and devotion. It's a very, very beautiful shloka. Patram pushpam phalam toyam yo me bhaktya prayachati tadaham bhaktyupahritam asnami prayatatmanah. The next shloka is shloka number 31, where Krishna makes another guaranteed or an absolute statement. He says, hey Arjuna, no devotee of mine ever perishes. Kshipram bhavati dharmatma shashvachantim nigacchati kaunteya pratijanihi name bhakta pranashyati. Next is shloka 33. Just hang on for a second. Slightly lost. Yes. Yeah. Here Krishna continues again. And it's another very beautiful shloka. He says, whoever be the person born on earth, be it a virtual Brahmin or a royal sage, everybody has to resort in me. Kim punar brahmana punya bhakta rajarshayastata anityamasukham lokam imam prapya bhajasvamam. And there another one, the last one here, 34. Krishna says, my devotees with their steadfast devotion shall come to me. Manmana bhava madbhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru mame vaishyashi yaktyattvam atmanam matparayanah. Thank you.
Thank you, Mom. Can we end where we started? Can you say 22 again? Yogakshema Mahamya.
Sure. Ananyashchintayanto mam ye jana paryupasate tesham nityabhiyuktanam yogakshemam vahamyaham.
Thank you so much. Beautiful.
Thank you.
This is what any person of superior knowledge guarantees a person of inferior knowledge, isn't it? This is at the highest level. But even a parent advising a kid, parent realizes that there is a fault in understanding of life or pleasure by the kid, wasting time or doing something that's has some remote consequences that the kid is not aware of. What is the parent trying to say? Just trust me. Follow my advice. The advice will guarantee you protection from the evil forces of life itself. It will guarantee better health, better peace, your own future will be more secure. This is what a teacher tries to tell the student. This is what a good leader tries to tell people. This is what a good politician should ideally tell the country. There are some sacrifices today that you guys need to make, but this will guarantee the health and well-being of yourself and the country in the future. Krishna says the same thing, but to the highest knowledge. Krishna says there's a lot of fear in change, but there's a lot of fear in ignorance, leaving ignorance. But whomsoever trusts me in this process, I need to give something in return for their trust. I give the sovereign guarantee, Rajaguhya, which is you will never have a lack, or you'll never feel the dissatisfaction of what you've sacrificed. Dissatisfaction of the lack of what you sacrificed that you would have otherwise got. Never, never. Never find a wise, self-realized person saying, all this is nice, but I'm missing a lot of things that I would have otherwise got. Never see that. Never see that. The person in the journey of the dark who worries about opportunity costs, the person who's experienced a high level of being. For that person, the benefit of the higher level is there, but there is the lack of the lower levels have dissolved. That's the beauty of elevation, the journey of the light. It's also the Shreyas, path of Shreyas. You have 100 diverse, distracted desires. You substitute it by few higher desires. The desires are getting fewer, but the joy is becoming better. And you don't sit and complain about the 100 diverse desires. So it's not the quantity of desires, it's what you are desiring, in which is subsumed a lot of other things, which you don't complain the lack of after you've experienced the higher. That's what's the royal secret. So let's look at chapter 9 itself, the slokas, which are a thing of great piety and can melt your heart when you invest time in it. Chapter 9 is Raja Vidya, Raja Guhya Yoga, the yoga of the sovereign knowledge, the sovereign guarantee, and the sovereign secret that Krishna has revealed to us. Chapter number 9, verse number 1, Shri Bhagavan Uvacha. To you, Arjuna, who do not carp means one who constantly complains with annoyance. Arjuna has stopped that now. In chapter 9, he is filled with bhakti now. The nature of his questions have changed. It's not about, oh, my body's pain, I won't fight that person there. No, chapter 1 is long past in history now. We are chapter 1 plus 8 chapters now, so Arjuna is not carping anymore. Since Krishna observes that, he says, Bhagavan says, to you who do not carp, Arjuna, now is probably the right time for me to unfold the most sovereign of secrets of the Brahman itself, knowing which you shall be free from this trap of worldly existence. There's nothing wrong in worldly existence. It's not some escaping something bad. Worldly existence can be heaven or hell. Worldly existence can be great and bad. So worldly existence doesn't mean that you're escaping something pathetic. You're just escaping something that's unreal, sir. It's a different reason of escape. You're not escaping something because it's bad, because it's good. You're escaping something because it's unreal. Then there is no argument. Why should I escape? There's no pith and substance to it in reality, is what Krishna says. But that is a sovereign secret, not for everybody, not for people who are resistant to it. Without faith in this dharma, there is the sovereign guarantee, sovereign knowledge. Failing to reach me, you will continue, Arjuna, to revolve in this path of the world of birth and death and happiness and sadness. Basically, the polarities of opposites. It'll continue. That's eternal by itself. 3, the whole of this universe is these are some difficult slokas, 3 to 10, but we'll crunch it. The whole of this universe is permeated by me, Arjuna, as unmanifest divinity. Just like ice is permeated by water, though you call it ice, though you call it vapor, though you call it a river, what is it permeated by? It's permeated by the water. The ice may call itself ice and fight against the vapor. But in truth, both vapor and ice are permeated by H2O, 2 atoms of hydrogen, 1 atom of oxygen. Similarly, all beings are permeated by me. You may call yourself by some name and gender and religion and identity and nationhood. Another person may call themselves differently. But just like water permeates ice and vapor, it's me that permeates everything in this universe. But then he puts a rider here. But really speaking, Arjuna, I am not present in them. The snake is permeated by the rope, meaning the snake doesn't exist, isn't it? It is because of the rope that it looks like a snake. So the snake necessarily is existing because of the rope. But in truth, the rope is not present in the snake. That's the nirguna saguna aspect of it. Rope, because of which the snake is causing fear, rope, because of which the snake is creating this chakra. That's the saguna aspect of the rope. Because it has interfered with the Maya by itself and appearing as a snake to all of us. And therefore, it's creating the samsara of fear. We're running away. We're calling somebody to remove the snake. That itself won't exist without the rope, because without the rope, there was no ignorance. There's no snake. That's a saguna aspect of the rope, which is creating that universe called the snake, which gives rise to samsara. But in reality, the rope is not in the snake. That's a nirguna aspect of the rope, which from the rope's point of view, what's happening? So from the rope's point of view, person who has not seen the rope as a snake, the rope is a rope. He would ask everybody else who's running away and being afraid and, trying to switch on the lights and calling for help. This person would ask, what's happening? Right? Nothing's happening. The person caught in that saguna nature of Brahman creating the samsara and the world, those people will be like, can't you see? This is real. The rope will ask, but what is happening? I have no idea what's happening. The rope alone is. But the saguna nature of the rope, because in marriage with Maya, creates this properties called the snake. That's why the Saguna Brahman is this God that we call the creator, sustainer, ordainer of this universe. But then from a Nirguna Brahman's perspective, there is no universe, nothing's happening, there's no change, there is no mutations, there is no birth and death. That alone is. It's the highest caliber of human thought here. Highest caliber of human thought. And when you self-intuitively realize that you are that Nirguna Brahman in your pure form, the Sakshi form, and when that becomes aparoksha, the wise men ask the same question. What world? What's happening? What desire? What samsara? What bondage? What liberation? Liberation from what? If you go tell the rope, get liberated from the snake, get liberated from the snake, the rope will say, what snake? What snake, sir, to get liberated out from? The rope is always the rope. From the rope's point of view, there is no snake. From the person who's seeing the snake's point of view, of course, there needs to be liberation from this ignorance that the rope is the snake. Why? Because there is first bondage to the snake. Therefore, there needs to be liberation to the snake. Therefore, that person can meditate, I am the rope, I am the rope. That person can put flowers saying, you're not the snake, you're the rope. That person can say, Neti, Neti, I'm not the snake. But from the rope's point of view, the person for whom there is no ignorance, there is no bondage, nor there is liberation. There is no moksha, there is no nirvana, there is no self-realization, nothing. It is just the rope all the time, isn't it? So, this entire natak of Vedas and Upanishads and self-realization, jnana, karma, bhakti is all fake by itself. It is all useful when you are in bondage. But when you are liberated, all this is funny stuff. Because the rope doesn't need meditation to become the rope. The rope is the rope. It is the identification with the snake that creates the bondage that requires that ignorant person to solidify their mental state, let go of the fear, then sit down in meditation, try to see the ignorance of the snake, ignorance that creates the snake, and then realize that I am the rope always. And the moment you realize you're the rope, you realize the snake was never there. The snake was not a parallel to the rope. The snake was never there. So that is this that is the sovereign knowledge. That is the sovereign knowledge. That is the enormity of the sovereign knowledge. So that's what Krishna is saying here. The whole universe is permeated by me as my unmanifest divinity, the Saguna Brahman, just like ice by water. But really speaking, Arjuna, I am not present in the snake. I am not present. There is no snake. He continues, nay, all those beings abide not in me. I am the sustainer and creator of all beings, of course, but myself in reality dwell not in those beings. Just as extensive air moving everywhere, being born in space and ever remains in space, likewise know that all beings who originated from my sankalpa ever abide in me. You see, this air and space example is used quite extensively in the Upanishads. Not just air, anything. Take this mug, for example. This is existing in space, isn't it? But the presence of which or the absence of which doesn't affect the space in which it is present. Without space, nothing can exist. Everything requires space to exist. Oops, I pulled a few drops of coffee. Yeah, but without space, nothing can exist. But space itself is not contained in the object that is in space, right? The object is contained in space. The space is not contained in the object. Just like those background axis diagram that I sometimes put in the slide, right? Like that. So just like that, Krishna says, that's how my nirguna aspect is shown through. As my mom said, the first 20 slokas or so here is a little, the Krishna's rendition of who he is. Then we'll come to the more of the slokas that my mom talked about, which is more reverence and devotional in nature. 8, wielding my nature, my prakriti, I procreate again and again, according to their respective karmas, all this multitude of beings subject to the sway of their own nature. So the Saguna aspect of Brahman, as we saw, the gold and the bracelet, we saw. So all the Namarupas, the forms of the gold, bracelet, ring, necklace, jewelry, they all are born and they dissolve back to that gold, right? But not only that, what determines what that is born again? This is just an example, so take it lightly, but what determines whether it will be born back into a bracelet or a ring? That has got nothing to do with the gold. That has got to do with the karma of that particular individual Namarupa itself. In our terms, it means that though it's the Brahman alone that exists, the Saguna nature of which creates this universe, our own experience of birth and death, however, has got nothing to do with Brahman. It's got to do with our own karma, our own actions, our own motives, etc., etc. It's like that petrol and car example that we often give. Without the petrol, there is no car. You cannot drive the car. But the experience of driving, whether you meet with an accident, whether you scratch the car, whether it gives you joy or unhappiness, depends on the caliber, the competence of the driver, depends on how well you've maintained your car. It's got nothing to do with the petrol, but without petrol, none of it is possible, right? So these are the arguments that Krishna is putting forward. And 9, he says, Arjuna, those actions, however, that is actions means he talking about karma. In 8, he says, it's your own karma that makes you born and die. But Arjuna, those actions, that karma, however, do not bind me. Unattached as I am to such karma, myself standing apart, as it were. Arjuna, great people who are imbued with divine nature, which is sattvic nature, knowing me as the prime source of all beings and as the Akshara, the imperishable, eternal, worship me constantly with one-pointedness of mind. Constantly chanting my names and glories and striving for my realization, bowing down again and again to me, Arjuna. Those devotees of firm resolve, ever united with me through meditation, worship me with single-minded devotion. The path of bhakti, he says. He says it's the same thing being done by jnanis as well. The next sloka, he says, others, Arjuna, who follow the path of jnana, what do? The typo, they betake themselves to me. Rather, they identify themselves to me through the yajna of knowledge, worshipping me in my absolute form. The jnanis are able to worship me in my absolute form, the nirguna form, formless aspect, as one with themselves. While still others, many paths of worship, isn't it? Others worship me in my universal form, the Saguna form, in many ways, taking me to be the diverse manifold celestial forms. Worship this God, this God. The Saguna nature of Brahman is which is beautiful. The Saguna nature of Brahman is where the Saguna nature of Brahman is beautiful. You can worship everything, the universe, the trees, the galaxies, the stars, the beautiful things, the idols, because it's all Saguna's projection. The Jnanis are able to worship the Nirguna aspect of God, which they identify with themselves. I am that Sakshi. Then Krishna says in a flurry of sloka 16 to 19, we may not read it all for lack of time, but he says, therefore realize, Arjuna, just like the gold behind the bracelet, just like the rope behind the snake, just like the guy in the bed, the mind of the person in the bed who's dreaming a fantasy world, just like that, realize for you, I am the ritual, I am the sacrifice, I am the offering, I am the sacred mantra, I am everything. In fact, this is a repeat of a previous chapter, remember? He says, I am the sustainer and the ruler of this universe. I am its father, mother, grandfather, everything. I am the one worth knowing, the purifier. I am Om and the Vedas. I am the supreme goal. I am the witness. I am the abode, refuge, well-wisher. I am the origin and the end. I am the resting place. I am the storehouse to which everything returns. Just like the Saguna nature of the gold is what everything returns to. The gold the bracelet returns to that gold. The necklace returns to that gold. Remember, the Nirguna nature of gold is not something else apart from the Saguna nature. The Nirguna nature of gold is just gold having identified with gold itself, for which nothing else is happening. The Saguna nature of gold is where the identity is still with the bracelet, the ring, the necklace. Therefore, they're all going somewhere. We don't know where, and coming back as something else. So that is the Saguna nature. But in truth, I am all of this. I radiate heat as the sun, Arjuna. I hold back as well as send forth showers, Arjuna. Arjuna, I am immortality as well as death. Even so, I am being as well as non-being. Am I the being? Yes. What in the world cannot be God? Are you God? Yes. Is the tree God? Yes. Is the God being? No. How can God be being? The Nirguna nature is neither being nor non-being. Is God a thing? No, God cannot be a thing. Is God nothing? No, God is not nothing. What is beyond a thing and nothing? Yes, somebody would say God is not nothing. God is no thing. That's one way of saying it. Similarly, is God a being? No. Is God a non-being? No. God is neither being nor non-being. It is that Sakshi Nirguna Brahman, which has got nothing. It can't be described. It can't be experienced. But you can know it. You are that. So now comes interesting, more easier slokas 20 onwards, where he talks about the paths again. Arjuna, those who perform action with some motives, as laid down in the Vedas. So he's talking about people who worship without this grasp of this ultimate. All good people. Those who perform action with some motives, as laid down in the Vedas, the rituals, and have thus been purged of sin because of that worship. They seek access to heaven and attaining paradise as a result of their virtuous deeds. They enjoy the celestial pleasures of heaven. But what happens? Having enjoyed the heaven world, they return on the stock of their merits being exhausted. Thus devoted to ritual as a means to achieve heavenly bliss, they repeatedly come and go. What is come and go? They ascend to heaven and return when the fruit has been enjoyed. How clearly is written, right? No ambiguity here. 20 and 21 itself is worthy of an entire class of meditation. Whenever there is motives and you're sincere to that motives, even if it be heaven, worship as written in the Vedas, it's beautiful. Whatever you worship, you get it. attaining such paradise, you go to heaven. Heaven means you have the best experience of life. Everything works in your favor. You're born with privilege and you can't account for that privilege, right? You're born into privilege. You can't account for that privilege. You enjoy it. It's heaven. You're in the 0.001% of humanity. You can't account for those things. But what happens, having enjoyed this heavenly existence because of your own past karma, because of your own past credits, what happens? They need to return to lower lives because the merits are being exhausted. Thus, when you're devoted to rituals as a means to achieve heavenly bliss, not as a means to escape from the cycle of birth and death itself, not as a means to worship me, or Krishna says, me as in the self, the Nirguna Brahman. Any other worship apart from that is worship with a motive of a better life, and therefore that is given unto you. But these people repeatedly come and go. That is, they ascend to heaven and return when the fruit has been enjoyed. They descend to hell and return when they have accrued some better karma. That goes on. However, 22. The devotees, Arjuna, however, who solely loving me, constantly thinking of me, and worship me selflessly. Selflessly meaning with no other motive, sir. There is no other. Why should truth have any motive? Truth is truth, isn't it? What is the motive to realize that the rope alone is, the snake never existed? The only motive is that alone is, that is the truth. There is no motive for, oh, if I realize the rope, my fear of the snake will come down. That statement is stupid, no? It is not stupid for a person who's in ignorance, because they don't know the snake is unreal. So they would say, oh, there is something called the rope. I'll worship the rope. Then I may be able to handle this life with the snake better. That is a stupid statement, because you think of the rope because that alone is. So Krishna says, the devotees who solely loving me, thinking of me, worship me, to those ever united in thought with me, I bring, this is the Yogakshemam Mahamiham, I bring full security and also personally look after their proverbial needs that they are sacrificing in this endeavor. It is not Krishna who looks after them at the end of the day. It's your own karma that has looked after you. Because if you are punching the buttons to the truth, truth itself will help you. What is that thing in Tamil? Dharmam talekakkum, which is truth itself. Dharma itself is its self-protection. How beautiful. Truth itself is self-protection. If you are unattached with viveka, if you're able to discern, and then vairagya, if you just get dispassion, in that dispassion is this guarantee of the greatest armor towards samsara, staying unaffected. But Krishna says from a bhakti, we are in this chapters of bhakti, isn't it? So Krishna says, in that vairagya, I will protect you. But it's not I, it's that vairagya itself, that's a self-protection in life. 25. Those who are votaries of God, go to gods. Those who are votaries of mains, reach the mains. Those who adore the spirits, reach the spirits. And those who worship me, come to me alone. That is why my devotees are no longer subject to birth and death, Arjuna. Whatever you worship, you reach there. You worship the material world, you become a great person in this material world. You worship the spirits, you reach the spirits. You worship demigods, you reach demigods. You worship money, you get money. You worship knowledge, you get knowledge. You worship something else, you get something else. But if you worship me, you come to me alone, Arjuna. That's where there is no lost effort. In every other worship, there could be lost effort, because they're all within the cycle of samsara. So there are ups and downs, credits and debits. You get money, you may lose money. You You get some benefit, you may lose that benefit. But when you understand me, there is no loss of effort. 26. Whosoever offers me, this is another sloka that was read, Patram Pushpam Palam Toyam. Whosoever offers me, Arjuna, with bhakti, with devotion, with understanding of my nirguna nature, not trying to experience that, but knowing that, and therefore seeing the universe in my light, seeing oneness everywhere, knowing that it's I, the self, which permeates everything. But it's also I, the self, which is untouched by anything. What do? Those people make the entire life and everything an offering unto me, because I alone exist. That is bhakti. So whosoever offers me with love, a leaf, patram, pushpam, a flower, phalam, fruit, toyam, water, I appear in person before that selfless devotee of sinless mind and delightfully partake of that article offered by them with love. Arjuna, whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you offer as oblation to the sacred fire, whatever you bestow as a gift, or whatever you do by way of penance, do that as an offering to me. You know, that's we learned that in Sannyasa Yoga, renunciation. Whatever you do, do that as an offering to me. Why? One, you can go the bhakti route as a bhakti to Krishna. Number two, you could go the jnana route. So that even after understanding that the formless nirguna aspect of Brahman alone exists, the mind is wicked, sir. The reality, the senses are only calibrated with the world. So it's easy to be drawn out of it. As I was telling to Abhisha early today, initially, all of this is just memory bites in our head. We may understand, appreciate, even love the subject, but it's not self-evident to us. So the knowledge of Nirguna Brahman, the knowledge of samsara, knowledge of the witness, it's all in our heads as memories. Tomorrow, if we have loss of memory, will we lose loss of Vedantic knowledge? If yes, then it's just memory, isn't it? But even if we lose loss of memory, what will we not lose, sir? Whatever we have become already, isn't it? See, if you are 50 years old, you become a 50-year-old. Tomorrow, if you lose memory, it doesn't mean you will anti-age and become 10-year-old again, isn't it? You've become 50, you've become 50. You may forget that you're 50 if you lose memory, but that doesn't mean you're not 50, isn't it? But whatever you've stored as just memory knowledge, where did I keep my house keys? That you'll forget with loss of memory. But what you will not forget is what you've become. Sorry, what that won't affect is what you've become. But initially, all this knowledge is as memory bites for us. So therefore, to make that, convert that into self-evident knowledge, don't just trust on your memory as knowledge, because the world is very luring. The world is real. Your children are real. Your work is real. Your to-do list is real. All that you have to do, but you get pulled into that as real, and another 20 years goes away without your knowledge. Time flies so fast, isn't it? Another 3 months goes away, 1 year goes away. Then we attend one more class here, then one more class there, and then finally realize, I think Buddhism is the answer. Then finally realize, no, Taoism is the answer. And finally think that, no, atheism is the answer. All that is neither right or wrong. Time goes away. Yeah? You may argue with everybody, this is right, that is right, this is wrong, that is wrong. Did you see this particular discourse by this person, that person? Your time is chipping away, sir. Who are you arguing? Who are you converting? Who are you establishing? This is better, that is better. What right fight are you fighting? Your time is chipping away, sir. Your karma bank is constantly accruing and debiting itself. You need to guarantee your salvation, sir. So that's why Krishna is saying, to ensure you're not pulled away back into this luring world, do everything as an offering to me, Arjuna. That is the only guarantee. Offer it to this knowledge of Brahman. Offer everything to the knowledge. Offer your promotion to Brahman. Offer your demotion to Brahman. Offer your wealth to Brahman. Offer your pleasures to Brahman. Offer your pains to Brahman. But act in a way that is gold standard. So Krishna says, Arjuna, the bhakti, remember, offer everything to me. Offer means what? Do it in the spirit of doing everything for Krishna, so that even as you engage with this world, fill up your time during the day, it doesn't take you away from this knowledge. That's what, when Abhisha asked the question, how do we retain this knowledge, as well as how do we do work in this world? One way is, a jnani would say, it's self-evident. Just like I am Abhisha, I wake up in the morning for Abhisha. I'm Aditya, I wake up in the morning. I wake up with the knowledge that I am that Nirguna Brahman. There's no, but the second way to do it is do all your work. You don't need to, while doing the work, remind yourself, I am the self, I am the self. But do all the work in the spirit of, I don't claim neither rewards nor lack of it for this work. I am doing it as an offering to God. Therefore, automatically, I will do it purely. Automatically, I won't bunk it. Automatically, I won't debase the quality of work. But none of that imprints stick to me. I'm doing it as an offering to God. 29th is an important sloka. If you joined early, you would have seen it in the first slide as you joined in. It says, Krishna says, I am the self, the Nirguna Brahman, is equally present in all beings, Arjuna. There is none hateful or dear to me. They, however, who devoutly worship me, abide in me, and I too am revealed to them. It's an important sloka because Krishna says, from that Nirguna's point of view, from the gold's point of view, from the water's point of view, from the screen's point of view, I'm equally present in all beings. I'm not more present in a Brahmin or less present in a Shudra. I'm not more present in a man, less present in a woman. I'm not more present in a child, less present in an adult. Similarly, there is none hateful or dear to me. So there is no partiality. Why? But that is going against what Krishna says, because obviously, if someone's more devoted to him, he's saying, these are people I like more. Yes, from the Nirguna Brahman's point of view, from the Nirguna Krishna's point of view, there is none. The gold doesn't like a bracelet or ring more, sir. The screen doesn't like a horror movie or a rom-com more. The water doesn't like a ice or vapor more. It is what animates everything. But Krishna says, what happens to a person who worships that Nirguna aspect of God? If you look deep enough, if you reflect deep enough, you'll abide in it. And the moment you worship that self, abide in that self, the self too is revealed to you. You become one with that self. That is a person who is dear to Krishna, he says, because I'm one with him, Arjuna. Even if the vilest sinner, a vile sinner, worships me with exclusive devotion, he should be regarded a saint, for he has rightly resolved. It's like the prodigal son, isn't it? There is always more celebration when a person who is transgressed, when a person who has lost way returns. Why? Because that is the That is the celebration of Uddhared Atmanatmana. That is a celebration of the intellect resurrecting the natural hierarchy of our body, mind, intellect. So even if the vilest sinner, this is the concept of grace, isn't it? We've talked about it in the class. What's the concept of grace in Christianity? The concept of grace is that efforts don't need to bring you closer to God. Meaning, if efforts take us closer to God, that means that some of us have a head start because of our own good karma. Some of us have a very back start because of our own bad karma. But what Christ says is the divine grace, the grace of Christ, is available for everybody who surrenders. Whatever be your starting point at that point in time, the moment you surrender to that Nirguna Brahman, the moment you identify with it, it doesn't matter what your backstory is. It doesn't matter what your karmic balance is at that point in time. Whether you're a sinner or a saint, it doesn't matter. You have prostrated yourself to the truth. So you're equally liberated as a person who's liberated from a very sattvic point of view. You're liberated from wherever you are. Then what does it matter? Then why would anybody be sattvic in nature? All that matters only in your experience of life in this world. The more sattvic you are, the greater heavenly life you have. The more tamasic you are, the more hellish life you have. It's got nothing to do with the self. So the effort doesn't need to be living a better life, living a purer life. The effort needs to be on hitting the jackpot, identifying with the self. It's a very blasphemous things to say, but that's the truth that Krishna is telling us, the royal secret, the Raja Yoga. He says the effort is not about being a purer person, better person, doing more rituals, being more saintly, being more pure. All that's useful. It has its benefits from a karmic point of view. But whether you're a sinner or a saint, deciphering, discerning that which is the essential cause of this entire natak called nature, the Atman, the Brahman, the pure consciousness, the witness, the Sakshi, the Satchitananda, that is the actual jackpot. Why? Even the vilest sinners, why does he say that? 31. He says, why? Because speedily even he becomes virtuous and attains abiding peace. Know it for certain, Arjuna, that my devotee never perishes. So we've seen this, isn't it? If you have there's this professor who did that in the classroom, where there's a bowl and there's many sizes of pebbles and rocks kept around it. And the professor asks, he's trying to fill that bucket or glass with all of these. So what do you put in first? See, if you put in the sand first and fill up the bucket, then you can never fit that big rock in it. If you put in the rock in first, then you can still put the sand around it and fill the bucket, right? So the volume in the bucket, there's enough volume available for all of it. But if you switch the order in which you're filling it, then you would find it a dirty, ineffective, non-optimized manner of filling the bucket. So you have to keep the main thing. So you put the main big rock, then you put the second level pebbles, then you put the third level pebbles, then you put the fine pebbles, then you put the sand. Sand will find itself through the holes to settle down. But if you put the sand first, then it's literally impossible to fit that big rock. After that, it'll always, the height will, it's difficult to switch it. Similarly, Krishna says, what does he say? It doesn't matter whether you're a sinner or a saint. First put the rock in, which is first worship me, Arjuna. Worship this Saguna nature of me, the Nirguna nature of me. See me in everything. Understand the gold behind the bracelet. Understand the screen behind the movie. Understand that Sakshi in you, in which your mind and body and intellect all you're able to experience. That Sakshi is unaffected by this mind and body and intellect. But without that Sakshi, there is no animation to this mind and body and intellect, blah, blah, blah. But when you understand that first, then what happens? Like the sand that comes later, your own vile nature, your sins and all of that, speedily, there's a nice way he says it, he says speedily, even that vile person becomes virtuous and attains abiding peace. Why? Because he's put the main thing first. It's very difficult for a person with vice or a vile person to first try to become virtuous, try to get abiding peace. Then it becomes a matter of effort, which means he has to offset his past karma, create new habits, then learn new karma, and then become sattvic. It takes 10 lifetimes to do that. But Krishna says, if you put the rock in first, if you understand me first, then everything else is an accelerated career path. You say in organizations, how do you accelerate a career path? First, you need a sponsor. Similarly, if you take Krishna's sponsorship up, then your virtue and peace become accelerated. And know it for certain, Arjuna, that my devotee never perishes. Mom read that sloka, isn't it? My devotee never perishes. He becomes eternal. Arjuna, this is not just for like Brahmins or men or certain kind of people or, Kshatriyas, etc. Whatever be, say like men or women, Brahmins or Kshatriyas or Shudras or Vaishyas, people of all temperaments, Rajas, Tamas, Sattva, people at all forms of life, Brahmacharya, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, Sannyasa, anybody, it doesn't matter, taking refuge in me, they too attain that supreme goal. Why is it a royal secret, the sovereign secret? Because nothing matters. Nothing matters. All the starting point, ending point and all doesn't matter. If you take refuge in this knowledge, you too attain the supreme goal. Finally, he ends this chapter by saying what he has said many times already in the first 9 chapters. Fix your mind on me, be devoted to me, worship me, thus linking yourself with me and entirely depending on me, you shall come to me. You shall come to me. It has a very biblical ring to it. It also has a very profound Advaitic ring to it. You shall come to me means what? Not physically, not in terms of time or space or causation. You shall come home, sir. Your home awaits you, so to speak. It's empty now because you have transgressed into samsara and struggling in the waves of ups and downs. But coming back home, homecoming means you realize who you are. Who am I? Nan-yar. And that is the sovereign guarantee if we do what Krishna is inviting us to do. With that, we come to the end of chapter 9 of the Bhagavad Gita. As I said a few chapters ago, up till chapter 3 to 6 is the more of a Tvam chapters. Because we spoke about karma, we spoke about sannyasa, we spoke about meditation. It's all about me. Now Krishna is talking from chapter 7 to around 12 around the universal nature of Krishna. Then we'll talk about more of the Asi, how that's the same, but that's just a very high level segregation. In the next few chapters, we will go deeper into Krishna's true form, etc., culminating with the Vishwarupa. By the time he shows us Vishwarupa to Arjuna, we should have elevated ourselves of understanding the Gita that we are able to experience Vishwarupa ourselves. That's a lofty aim to have. So devote some time on the subject, whether Whether you believe in Gita, don't believe in Gita, since you're attending these classes, devote some time to read more interpretations. In the Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana, in the Shravana stage, don't limit yourself. Read 5 more blogs, read some interpretation, read Wikipedia, read some audiobooks, whatever. Accumulate. In modern agile form of working, I don't know whether you worked in agile workplaces, agile ways of working, other the scrums and modern methodologies. The first step is learn all you can, right? Learn all you can. And then get into agile sprints and discussions and debates, etc. So now you're in this learn all you can phase, means read more. The more you read, better the interpretations. And next week, we will start with chapter 10 of the Bhagavad Gita. So let's end today. Please repeat after me. Om. Om. Tatsaditi. 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 Srimad Bhagavad Gita Su. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Su. Upanishadsu. Upanishadsu. Brahma Vidyayam. Brahma Vidyayam. Yoga Shastre. Yoga Shastre. Shri Krishna Arjuna Samvade. Shri Krishna Arjuna Samvade. Raja Vidya Rajaguhyo Yog Raja Vidya Rajaguhya Yogo Nama. Raja Vidya Rajaguhya Yogo Nama. Navamodhyayah. Navamodhyayah. Thank you all. Have a great week ahead. Stay connected on the group should you need anything. I'll see you all next week.
Thank you, Aditya.
Thank you so much, Aditya.
Thank you, Aditya.